Well, hello and welcome back to the Improvement Season podcast, guys. It's another week done in our world of training and nutrition. Hopefully it was the same for you. Hopefully you've been looking forward to the next episode where Steve and I are just like chatting about stuff, animes, tattoos, training, nutrition. The good things, right? So, Steve, how are you doing? How are things on your end? Where are you at the moment in regards to training? Just give the listeners a little bit of an overview of what has been going on your end.
So I had a way more exciting week than I ever normally do because me and Charlotte went to Tenerife for 3 nights. So we had like 4 days almost there. So yeah, been a bit of a different week for me to the usual. So it's novel coming back because we didn't expect the weather to be that great there. We kind of looked it up beforehand. We were like, it doesn't look that great. It was a bit cloudy, a bit wet. It wasn't that hot. But actually, it was fantastic. For those who are like watching me on the stories and stuff, or maybe saw some of the posts, like blue skies, it was like 20, 25 degrees most of the time. Perfect weather, actually, like shorts and t-shirt. You could walk around a lot. So that was lovely. So it's kind of novel coming back. And I don't know what it's like in Germany today, but we have snow outside. It's been snowing all morning.
It has been cold, right around 0 degrees. Sometimes it's raining, sometimes it's snowing. So not the nicest weather.
So it's kind of novel coming back to that, and then also having a little bit of a tan. Like my face is a little bit tanned, my upper chest and shoulders. So in the gym, I'm like, oh man, like it's a little bit of a tan just makes you look like a little bit more aesthetic in every way, like a little bit more attractive, but also like the muscles show a little bit better. So I was like feeling myself a little bit. So that was nice. And also, of course, it was the end of the mini cut, and so been eating up. And so just like filling out like that initial kind of,
Did you end the mini cut before the holiday or after the holiday?
So we left on Thursday morning, and that's basically when I ended it. So I'd done 4 and 3 days. So I did Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, dieting still training hard. And then I ended it as soon as like we were leaving that morning. So eating guesstimated around maintenance, kind of eating mindfully, guesstimating food whilst out there. And knowingly probably underestimating, I would say, because like some of the food I was eating, like we went to a vegan cafe and I got the like vegan French toast or whatever, and it was like 2 pieces of bread, like seeded bread, soaked in maple syrup, loads of hazelnuts all over the top and loads of fruit. And I was like, man, I don't even want to really know how many calories are in this. I'm just going to kind of guesstimate around here, knowingly underestimating, but we're walking way more than usual. So I wasn't concerned about really gaining weight.
A couple of questions there, Steve, because I think that many of our listeners sometimes find themselves in that same spot. They have a harder time either eating up to their calories or to try to stay below it. How was it for you? Was it easy to actually, because your calories are obviously much, much higher and you are someone who tends to undereat rather than to overeat in certain situations? And was it easy for you in Tenerife to actually hit your macronutrient requirements for the day, or was it actually a harder thing?
It was, I don't know if you've ever had this with clients, but it's like, I don't know, they are just suddenly 1 week they've decided I'm going to start preparing for a marathon or something. So their energy expenditure just, it's going to change dramatically, but you're not exactly sure how much because you don't know how much they're going to compensate. And so it's like all the variables are changing. One, I wasn't really in control of what I was eating because every meal, like I didn't have a scale, I wasn't weighing anything. Every meal we had was out. So already I was like, okay, so my calibration for energy in is off. And then calibration for energy out is off as well because I wasn't training and my steps we did over 20,000 steps every day. So they were much higher. So I was like, man, I'm just going to have to go a little bit by like eye and mindfully kind of navigate it. And so I think if I had gone and I'd been peak mass, one, it would have been extremely uncomfortable because I would have been so hot and sweaty and felt disgusting just going out there and being topless. Like it just would have been I would have been a hot mess. But secondarily to that, with the amount of activity we're doing and the amount of calories I'd need to hold peak mass, I'm pretty sure I would have undereaten, especially because my appetite would have been terrible. Whereas I went end of the mini cuts, my appetite's actually in a really nice place right now. Like I'm enjoying my meals, which is so nice. I want it to last as long as possible, to be honest. So I was enjoying eating out there. So I just made sure be mindful of the number of calories you're having. Don't go wild. Don't have like a dessert with every meal. Don't like, I don't know, like I wasn't cleaning up like that meal I had with the maple syrup and the nuts. I was like, I left a bunch of nuts. I didn't like clean up all the maple syrup. I was like, I don't need that many calories. Like it's just not warranted. So I just kind of knew that I couldn't be precise and take solace in that fact that I couldn't be precise and don't stress about it. And no, it's only a few days. I'm very unlikely to be in a massive surplus or a massive deficit, and just don't starve myself, but equally don't stuff myself. So I just kind of went like, tried to gauge things via that. And if you looked maybe 3 to like 5 years ago or something, I think I would have stressed out in such a situation. I probably would have asked Charlotte if we could maybe like have some meals in or something, and I don't know, taken a scale or something. Whereas like now, as we've spoken about so many times, like we've so much matured that we realize like, even if I was off, like it was never going to be my miles. And so it's just not worth stressing about. So yeah, that's kind of the approach that I took to nutrition out there.
And eating was always delivered, not really delivered, but available from the hotel, or were you also buying things at a supermarket? Because I know that on some smaller islands, it's very, very hard to actually get some food via a supermarket. I don't know what it's called in English, but the seashells? Is it called?
Right, yeah.
I heard from people that you can't. There are basically no supermarkets, and you have to rely on what the hotel is giving you. But of course, then the hotel of what they have, the buffet and the catering is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
But how was it for you? Were you just eating the things from the hotel?
So we had breakfast included. So we had breakfast, which was just your kind of typical. They have like your cooked breakfast, like eggs, bacon, baked beans, all of that, bread. Then they had like cold meats and stuff like this, fruit and like cereal. So I could make that work. It was just a case of like, it was a bit higher fat because it was like, where do I get my protein? It was from things like eggs. It was from salmon. They had smoked salmon there. I was like, man, I'm going to make sure I have smoked salmon. This is included. Like, this is expensive stuff. So I had that. And then I was like, man, I'm on holiday. They had a few, and I like you said, I'm on decent calories. They had a few like treaty things. They had like donuts at breakfast. So I would like take one of those, just have like a few bites of one and just leave it, just to be like, I'm just getting my money's worth, try something. So that's what breakfast was. But then Tenerife is... we walked to a few little towns, so they had lots of restaurants. However, funny because we talked about the vegan thing, and I was like, man, it's hard enough to try and find vegan food on like in Tenerife, let alone if we were to go to Cape Verde, Charlotte would have been eating like chips and bread or something. Like they'd have hardly anything. So we ate meals out, but they did have supermarkets. So like I mentioned, the vegan food because Charlotte's obviously vegan, so we'd go out for vegan meals. I'd just be like, there's supermarkets all over the place. So I was like, can I pop in here afterwards? And they literally have like yogurt protein shakes, and they had like what's it called? The protein mousse, which was, they have a salted caramel one, which was really good. I've never had that flavor. That was great. So yeah, I bought a bunch of those. We had a fridge in the hotel, so I bought a bunch of those to have in the hotel. Was kind of having those protein shakes on the go. And I even took some protein powder, like sachets with me, just in case, like to top up protein. So that I'd have no excuse not to meet my protein. So yeah, that's basically how it works. I bought a bit of fruit and veg, but honestly at breakfast you get like, there are tons of fruit, loads of like veggies. So I managed like to get some of that in. So I wasn't like, eating like, I still ate like an adult. Like I was still getting micros in. I still had an emphasis on protein. I could see if someone did this trip similarly to me, but was like, fuck it, protein, screw that, fuck fruit and veg, they could have way gone over their calories. Because I was saying to Charlotte, to keep any sort of like focus or to try and keep my fat down when you're eating out is so hard, because things come with chips, they come fried, they add butter on everything. Like it's you have to be. Yeah, it's hard to control.
I'm simply not the guy who likes like fatty things.
I'm not. It's not my preference.
So my dietary fatty intake is always very much on the low side of the spectrum, just because I don't like it from a taste bud perspective.
I think probably part for you is like you need to keep that under control too, because if you did even how I approached it would have just been way too many calories. Yeah. So,
but everything,
like,
for example,
fortunate.
Yeah, but everything that is fried, for example,
it's not great.
I find it disgusting, to be honest. Like, I know that some people, they very much also like those kind of fried sushi rolls. And I find that is the worst that you can get. And that has nothing to do with the sushi anymore, for example, right? But yeah, so for me personally, the takeaways there are just a little bit of preparement goes a long way of getting some, for example, protein sachets with you. And that it doesn't really require a lot of effort and work on your end. And yet you have still some kind of protein plan Bs with you. And then also when it comes then to the events themselves, just because it's included doesn't mean that you have to finish everything. You can have a bite, taste something, but then leave it there, and you don't have to finish the entire plate. And I think that this is the hardest part for many people. And we even know it from the scientific literature when it comes to a buffet, people are more tempted then to go way beyond their satiety.
I used to be, actually, that's a really good point, because when, like previously, when I'd go to buffets, I used to hate buffets. I don't like buffets actually as a general standard, because I just think it's kind of similar going to a restaurant that does burgers, pizzas, sushi, like they do everything and everything is bad.
It's never great.
Exactly. So it's the same at this buffet, like the eggs and things were cold, the baked beans were cold. Anyway, it's not done to a high standard. But anyway, buffets previously for me were like a trigger, because I would be that guy, especially when I was younger and I didn't have much money. So I'd be like, right, I've spent, I don't know, 15 quid here for all you can eat buffet. I am getting my fill and more. So I would just like devour everything. And yeah, whereas now I didn't even think about it that I needed, like I did a bit need some self-control. Like I ate like a bite of a donut, like versus eating the whole thing. It would have been easy to eat the whole thing. I was just like, but I don't need it. And I'm not getting any, like actually it'll take me further away from my goals, and maybe enjoying meals later in the day I'd feel a bit more restricted. So yeah, I can see how people find that hard at buffets, because the temptation's real. You paid for it, it's there waiting for you, and you're feeling a little bit peckish still. Yeah, I could see that being hard for some people.
Yeah, and the monkey brain kicks in of like, oh, fuck, this tastes good. And the rationality goes out of the window in that moment. You don't really think about the potential consequences. It's like the people, I don't know if it's the right comparison, but whenever people are cheating, I think before cheating happens, it's still easy to say, I would never cheat. But if you're then in the moment, I think everyone who's listening had I would very much assume had some form of sexual relationship with someone else. And if you're then aroused and in that moment, no matter what the circumstances are, you're often kind of don't give a fuck of what's going on around you. And when you're then in that moment, right, everything is forgotten. But then afterwards, maybe it was kind of a weird situation and you think, and you're giggling, or maybe it was kind of a very, very awkward situation to have then sexual intercourse or so, right? And you then realize how fucked up it was. And for people who are then cheating, I think reality hits them afterwards. And I could see that it's kind of the same thing with food as well, that in that moment, it feels so rewarding. It's so delicious and tasty. And then first, maybe, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes afterwards, you realize, actually, it wasn't worth it. And what did I just do?
I can, that's like that, like you said, it's that like monkey brain kicking in, where it's just like, you are put on this earth for like, again, like to survive. So tasty, delicious food. Yeah, you should eat lots of that. And equally, you're put on this earth to, like, as like base fundamentals to reproduce and have kids. So when an opportunity comes, take it, go impregnate, whatever that is. So you can definitely, but it only takes a moment. And this is something I think we both use with our clients, is like, just take a second before you make that action and be like, is this a good idea? Basically, like if you're going to like, should I do this right now? Should I not? Is this? I
also have the feeling that when you're growing up, and we are always talking about having a much more mature approach now to eating, you're not even being tempted in those situations anymore. So if we want to draw back to then the comparison with kind of cheating, I have everything that I need right now. And cheating isn't even an option, because the life that I'm living right now, is giving me everything that I need. And I know that cheating would never even come close to giving me the satisfaction, not just in the initial short term, but also over the long term. So it's not even something that I have to deal with. It's not even on my radar. And I have the feeling that it's kind of the same with food as well, because we've been exposed to situations like these so often. And we have also dealt with them quite excessively in the past. But we've matured so much that for me personally, it doesn't even become an option anymore to massively overeat or to go way beyond my satiety levels and all that kind of stuff. But it took also a long time to actually get there.
That analogy is actually so perfect. Like it works so well when I think about it. Like, again, people will completely understand if they're in a long-term relationship, they don't even contemplate cheating because their like relationship is in a great place. The same with your diet. You wouldn't contemplate cheating if you felt like your diet was doing everything it needed to and you had a good relationship with the food that you were consuming. And I know in the past, like I said, I didn't have a good relationship with it. So things I had to do was like, I'd have to remove myself from the situation. So I don't know, I order a meal. I'm like, right, I don't want to eat these chips. I tell the waiter, take them away. Like, cause I can't trust myself. Or I cover them with like a blanket, or like I will just, not a blanket, obviously called a serviette. Or I destroy them. I make them disgusting, like just to get it away from me. So it's similar, like, I don't know, you're tempted to cheat. And so you're just like, right, I need to delete this person from my phone, or I need to walk away from this party right now because I can't trust myself.
I only had, so I didn't really destroy it, but it's kind of a similar thing that I did in the past, to not even have one taste of it or one bite of it, because I knew that I couldn't trust myself in stopping. It was like, I don't know, it's like an addict who's still not trusting himself because he hasn't really come of it. And if you just have like one taste of it, it's just like going back to your old habits, to the addiction, and to the person that you simply don't want to be as well.
Yeah, no, I can see that. It's like, are you that person who can flirt a little bit and not go any further? Or is the flirting just like that opens the door to kissing and doing things you shouldn't be doing? Similar, like, are you the person who can have a cookie and put the rest back or whatever? Or are you going to eat the whole bag now?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, yeah,
go ahead.
I was going to say, so obviously got back late Sunday and basically just back into kind of the routine of things. I've done a few modifications to my training just because, I don't know, I just wanted to experiment a little bit. And I might regret
let me guess.
Length you can guess partials. At least one thing. There you go. I've incorporated more length and partials for sure. But the way I'm doing it is like on bent over rows was an example. I think I did 1 or 2 sets full range, and then I'll do 1 set like partial. And I'm just experimenting with putting a bit of volume towards partials. So it's not like my entire training is now length and partials. And on things where I personally struggle to know if it's worth it, if that makes sense, or it's like it's a bit too awkward, like Smith machine squats. I don't know if it's worth it on that movement. So I'm just doing, and they're feeling great as is. I'm just doing all of them as they are. But I'm just picking and choosing some areas where maybe it will feel nice or whatever. And then the other thing I'm trying is I've moved back to an upper lower split. So just spreading the main thing is just spread out legs a little bit more rather than having 2 big kind of boluses of legs. So on the leg days, I'm putting calves and abs and like delts or arms so that they're not just like overwhelming in that sense. So I'm just spreading out the volume and increasing the frequency a little bit. Just to, again, it's just such a small change. My volume hasn't changed. It's just spreading it out a bit more. So yeah, it's not like I think some people think that's like a huge change to go to increase your frequency, but it's like if the volume's the same, I almost don't think it's a big deal.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, sometimes changing things up when it's not like drastic modifications, I think it's then more for psychological reasons rather than physiological reasons. So you're not expecting like massive changes in terms of stimulus or hypertrophic outcomes or anything alike. It's more like, I don't know, sometimes I have it as well that I go in there and I didn't plan for it, but then I'm picking a different exercise and I stick with it for the next mesocycles. And it wasn't like pre-planned. It was just like, that machine is available. Let me go and do this one instead. And I don't know whether it has something to do with intuition that over the years it has just built up of like that it's so deeply ingrained that you kind of know when to change things up intuitively. I can't put it any other way. I just had it the other day with, normally I'm doing, as I've talked about a couple of times now, on that hammer strength rowing machine that I'm occupying it for nearly the entire back session. And as the second movement, because I was targeting my mid to upper back, putting the seat height down and then having like a pronated grip and rowing a little bit more with flared elbows. And I haven't done any kind of lat pull downs in a long time. And I was in that moment, I thought like, no, I'm now going to switch over to the lat pull downs, because those pronated rows, they just felt a little bit heavy and unproductive overall over the past sessions. Went over, felt amazing, felt even some kind of soreness over the next couple of days. This is what I'm going to ride with now. And those are probably also the modification that you're normally doing as well, I would assume.
Yeah, it's not like there's an obvious reason to change it, but it's like, it's just feeling a bit stale. Like it isn't feeling, the kind of stimulus side of the equation isn't quite there. And it's just not giving you that feedback you want. And then progression is maybe like a bit slow. And I know what you mean. And then you just try something else. It's like, oh, okay, actually this opens it up a little bit, especially if you've been running it for like months upon months upon months. It's just like it's like, what are the downsides to rotating it? Like minimal to none. And it's like, what are the upsides? Well, at least I get a psychological break here, and maybe I improve the SFR. So I totally feel you.
Yeah, it's interesting, Steve, and this is something that I've thought about the other day. I don't know when it was, like 2 or 3 days ago, that I have the feeling that you're someone who is, sorry for that, more likely to experiment a little bit more and open for testing things out a little bit more frequently than I am. I don't know if it's my German nature of being more skeptical than nature, because most of the things that are then always being presented as maybe the new trend, I'm always very skeptical about. And this is one of those things as well. And something else that I was thinking about is something like ashwagandha, for example, right? Certain supplements in the past. I do remember that you were always someone who was jumping on them earlier than I was, giving it a try. And I appreciate it, because then you're kind of the guinea pig for me as well. Yeah. I can just watch and observe you. And I don't even have to do it myself. So it either then confirms my skepticism or it kind of debunks it.
Yeah, I definitely see that with us as well. I wouldn't say I jump on things like, for example, with what was the even thing, like testosterone, whatever. Like I'm not that sort of person who just jumps on it at any sort of evidence. But once I'm convinced enough, and then I'm ready to, I won't like with the length and partials, I'm not like, my whole program's now going to be length and partials. No. I'm like, right, I'll sprinkle a little bit in, and then I'll sprinkle a little bit more in if it's going well. And then I'll like see what sticks and what doesn't.
And sorry, I didn't want to imply that you're jumping on the next trends or so.
Yeah.
It's just the comparison between us two, that I am very pragmatic in nature when it comes to those things. And I often have a very hard time jumping on new things, simply because for me personally, it doesn't really. So of course, we all have then our theories of how much it does for us, what results it can give us. And I am often someone who is then way more skeptical than maybe other people are as well. And this is also something that I see with us too as well.
It's the little age difference.
Maybe it is. And also, once again, the German nature. Germans are always a little bit more skeptical by nature.
Absolutely. And I think, like, I don't know if it, but I think it's mostly a personality difference. Just I don't know if, I wouldn't say you're not like this, but I'm always like keeping my eye on what's happening in the industry, particularly for the podcasts and things. And then I'm like, anything where I'm like, there might be something to it. I'm like, why don't just experiment a little bit with that? So I think, for example, like I even bought like a bunch of bands, for example, because I just was like, lots of people are doing these banded movements. Let's see if there's anything there. So I tried it. And I kind of like, I like using myself as like a guinea pig to go through it, because I think my fear is that I get left behind. I think that's part of what drives it, is I'm like, I want to be on the cutting edge. I want to make sure I'm there. when it's building up, and I don't want to be left behind in that way. But I completely see the appeal of you sitting back and just being like, what I'm doing is clearly working. It's like driving results. It's evidence based. But yeah, I'm just a bit more testy.
Yeah, but I just want to add one thing. I hate it when people are like, if it does work, don't fix it. I hate that mentality because it's so lazy, and it also doesn't really imply that what it is that you're doing is great. It just works, right? And so many things do work, but they are not really a good thing to be doing. You know, I mean, of course, you could take the shittiest car and get to your destination if you want to. That is 1,000 kilometers away, but you have a very, very, very uncomfortable and shitty ride overall. Maybe it even breaks down at times. Or you can just get a proper car, right, and get there as well, probably in a more efficient and more convenient way. Right, so I don't want to come across as someone who doesn't really like to experiment, but so many things that are then always coming up. I'm just skeptical because to me personally, it doesn't really often sound convincing. And I can take it all the way back to something like P ratio back like ages ago. I was always like, it doesn't really sound like plausible to me because we have also other examples, plenty of other examples. Same goes for back then when people were saying squatting with your knees over your toes is bad for your knees. And then you take a look at Olympic weightlifters, and fucking everyone is actually then pushing the knees so far forward that that they should explode or burst based on that logic. Right? And those kind of small things where I'm just like, can't people see that? And this just then makes me very much question the logic behind certain trends that then don't take into consideration the opposite sides of the spectrum, or not even taking into consideration other examples even.
Yeah, I think I always love that when people pull it back, like just looking at the real world. You have real world examples of what's going on, and it just like so easily arguments in many ways. Yeah. And I think there is a bit of not terrifying is the word that's come to mind, but it's not terrifying, a worrisome trend. I don't know if you follow Andrew Huberman at all, but he is someone...
Not at all.
He has gained... I don't even know if I follow him, but I see his stuff everywhere. Oh, like, yeah. I don't know if I follow him. I'm convinced I probably do, because I see so much people sharing it. And I'm like, man, like I can see the appeal of him because he comes across very intelligent. He's got credentials, but he talks on like cutting edge, and he talks about things where you're just like, man, if you got lost into his world, you could really start missing the forest for the trees. Like little things that are just like not even necessarily at all like evidence-based, like he hasn't got papers to back them up, but because he has so much credibility and he talks with such authority, you can easily get lost in his world, I think. And I think that's where you always, if I'm saying like, okay, so if you are someone who wants to try whatever it is, new supplements, a new protocol, new training paradigms, like don't stray too far from what's been driving results already, because it can easy to get caught up in trends like that, and then you're just spinning your wheels. Like you're just trying something new, hoping. And we've talked about it so many times. You see it with people who maybe even coach hop, where they're looking for that silver bullet. Oh, that coach is the one who has the answer for me. Or this coach does, and there's some credence to it. Yeah, maybe the coach you've got isn't the one for you, but if you're just like, if they've been doing everything right with you, I don't know. It's like hoping for something that doesn't exist. A magic unicorn.
Absolutely. So two things on this one. Three things. First, we're taking a short break, and then we will be back discussing more.
Do you not see the progress you would like? Are you sick of writing your own programs? Or perhaps you need some accountability in order to stick with a plan? Then it's time to start working with us. We at Revive Stronger offer a truly personalized coaching service. You'll get more than just an email with some macros or random cookie cutter program. With Revive Stronger, you will be the center of our attention. You will receive your own fully individualized training protocol alongside a customized nutritional strategy. We created the coaching around your needs, wants, personal preferences, and your own unique lifestyle. Every single week, we delve into your program in order to make appropriate adjustments so that we get the most out of your time and the best possible outcome. We help both female and male athletes to seriously change their body composition by adding more muscle mass and decreasing fat tissue. No matter if you're a competitive bodybuilder or just want to look better, if you need help with your progress and taking your physique to the next level, our coaching is for you. It's time to make a change. Sign up today and let's revive stronger.
So the second point is then, now I lost my train of thought here. No, in regards to Huberman, I think this is the power of language, and some people have it and can use language as like magic. You know, they are kind of charming people and pulling them in to their own world, and it's very, very hard to escape it then. And some people do have this. They just talk and you're immediately kind of mesmerized by what it is that they are saying. And no matter what it is that they are saying, you start to believe it. And you don't even start to question it. And you go even as far as kind of feeling that you need to protect him when he's being attacked by other people and stuff like this, you know? And that's the power of language. And I think that so many people underestimate that. And we have, of course, parts of our human history where language was being used as a weapon. And we have it nowadays still as well. But especially the Second World War was a perfect example. Propaganda. I mean, it was insane what propaganda did to the psychology of people. Right? And that was just the power of language. And to some extent, marketing and also certain influencers make use of that, right? Of course, not to the same extent, but this is just the power of language. And it's so hard to actually detach yourself from it. And I think that we all know it to some extent with certain individuals. And I think especially in our realm, many people latch onto Mike's words. And this is not a criticism against Mike. He's just a very, very charming dude and very cool and lovely to listen to. He's funny, right? He's intelligent, and many people just latch onto his words without even questioning it as well. Yeah, I don't know if you have something to say about this as well.
No, I'd agree. I'm actually really grateful that Mike is so well spoken, because I think he's done the industry like a huge favor in many ways, and myself. Like, I learned, and we have learned so much from Mike, but you do have to be careful not to put someone like Mike, and he would never want this either, on a pedestal where you just like don't question anything that individual says, because as soon as you start doing that and you start idolizing someone, you have got into like some sort of dogma that is not a good place. Yeah. Because and I've been there, I think, with Mike even potentially, where it could be any expert. If they start to change their mind on something and you see them say it differently, you're suddenly like, but you said this before, and that was your fundamental belief. And you're like, oh shit, even he can change his mind. And that's why it's, I guess, good with Mike, because he will update his kind of thought process and beliefs on things. But that can leave people who follow in that very much like they can do no wrong sense. A bit like, oh no, like now that person's all gone. So no, I agree with you. And there's, probably like countless examples of like doctors and people with authority who are well-spoken, like Andrew Huberman, or even worse, who are just sound so convincing. And then like, again, it's bad when they don't update their beliefs, because then they do just get that following that just defends them to death. And it's just like,
I think it's as though to give them a little bit of a leeway here, or those people who are finding themselves trapped in a corner. It is often self-induced, where they had such an extreme viewpoint on something, and they've been so convinced about it that now turning back may actually make them less credible to other people, right? And I see this being a tricky situation to be in, especially when your entire identity and brand that you have built, so a couple of million followers maybe, have been following you for this person that you are, right? And if then that one thing that you stood for is actually something that you are now turning your back against, I could see this being a challenging thing from a personal perspective of doing this and convincing yourself like, okay, I have to stand up for what's right rather than what I should be doing for my own benefit.
That's why I'm not that we've got millions of followers, but I hope it's obvious to our following in the way that we talk about things, how we always give like precursors before, like most likely this is probably the way. Like we aren't ever like 100%. You absolutely must be leaving reps in reserve, otherwise your gains are absolutely subpar. Like I don't know if research came out and was like every set should be taken to failure for optimal hypertrophy. We could be like, all right, like, okay, we can move with the updated science, whatever it is, you know. I do think it's a scary place to get in when you, like create your brand or based on one thing that like science is always searching for the truth and is going to be updated. So that's, I guess, not that this is something similar, but there was like, if it fits your macros coaches, like macros coaches was a thing. And it's like, I don't know, it's just, I wouldn't ever want to kind of be branded on a certain programming philosophy or something like that, because I think that's a way to kind of fall into dogma, and then you just start believing it yourself, and anything that comes out that kind of critiques it, you're just like, oh, it's flawed or whatever, like, because this is so fundamentally true in my world. I feel like I was there with like clean eating and like not having like dirty foods or whatever. I was like, but this is like so much my belief. And it took a lot for me to break away from it and be like, oh man, I seriously like put myself in a hole for like 3-4 years, eating restrictively for no end. It's like, man, that was time wasted. But now I'm on the right path at least.
This brings me to point number 3, actually. And you said one thing about methodologies and all that kind of stuff, and coach hopping, trying then to find a different coach who has a different methodology around programming. And I just yesterday made an Instagram, well, 2 days ago, an Instagram post, kind of an update of just a picture of me in the gym, right? And
looking jacked.
Yeah, and it received a lot of attention, and it was actually coming as a surprise to me. I was just like, oh, I'm actually looking good here, right? Let me take a picture and so. And it's very much appreciated, of course, that you're then getting that attention. I can't say that it doesn't feel good. Simply because in the past I've always dealt with those kind of body dysmorphia things, and never really was at a point where I was satisfied with the way that I look. And then there was actually several people who were asking like, what did I do differently to actually get to that point now? Because I'm looking good in their eyes as well. And I was thinking about it. And funny enough, because you've been saying about coach hopping, I was thinking that this is something that many coaches won't really admit or never really think about. They don't really give it enough credit. And I think that this is something that universally holds true. And that is completely independent of the coach itself. And it's because it can't be sold. It's not a sexy thing that someone can stand for. And that is time. I think that the biggest reason why I look the way that I do right now is because I invested time into the entire thing. Of course, I changed over the years, try to get better. I always like to see training and nutrition as like every other sport when it comes to this. You're practicing, or as every other skill, you're practicing. Each and every single time you want to get a little bit better. You're repeating certain movement patterns, certain just patterns in general, doesn't have to be just movement patterns. And by doing that over and over again, you're getting better at something, right? Deliberate practice. And then it just boils down to time. And that's why I was thinking it's something that many coaches never really give any kind of credit to. They always stand for something. They always have one selling point. But the fundamentally important thing, in my opinion, is to spend enough time with something in order to actually achieve a certain level of skill set or achievement. And it's just funny because now you brought up about coach hopping, and it just reminded me about the thing that I wanted to talk about, and that is like the single biggest answer to that question of like, what did I do differently? And I didn't do anything differently. It's just I spent more time in that environment.
I think that's so important to say, because I saw people were saying, can we cover that on the podcast? And I was intrigued to see what you would say, because in my head I was thinking, Pascal's not going to kind of come out and be like, I tried this one movement and it just blew up my
Exactly.
delts, or I changed my diet and implemented an extra protein feeding before
Yes.
bed, and like it changed the game for me.
Exactly. And these things, what you just said, are just pure examples of what other coaches are selling at times. Of like, I did this one thing, or especially like YouTube thumbnails and or titles, right? The one single movement you're not doing that is holding you back, or something like this, you know? And that is then becoming their selling point. When in reality, it's not that one single movement. It's not that one single food. It's not that one single, I don't know, fatigue management thing that does the difference. It's just like hours of hours doing one specific thing over and over again, of course, with some modifications at times. But in the end, that's also what it is that we have been talking about over the past couple of weeks. That in the end, I don't really think it makes any kind of significant difference of whether you're doing something like seal rows or chest supported rows on a machine. Maybe the stimulus may differ if you were able to really measure it, of the stimulus, measuring the stimulus, not EMG reading or something like this, but the stimulus. And let's just say the chest supported rows only give us, let's say we have a rating of 1 to 10 or so, right? 10 is the highest amount of stimulus. Let's say the seal rows is the best rowing exercise, 10 rating of a stimulus. Chest supported rows, maybe 9.5. But that would then mean that you then nearly need to maybe invest 1 or 2 more weeks. No bodybuilding judge or no one judging you on the internet will be able to tell this dude did XYZ of a movement for X amount of time and that one didn't, or he did something else or so, right? So for example, my delts, they have grown big time. I didn't know overhead pressing in ages. And so many people, a specific crowd, is saying like, you need to do overhead pressing. Right?
I was going to say, but when the judges see you turn to the back, they know if you did deadlifts.
Yeah,
they just know it.
Yeah, that's true.
It shows.
Yeah.
Which is funny because I think I probably look like I'm someone who does deadlifts and I don't do deadlifts. like glutes, like my back's just like a strong point. Anyway, I completely agree with you. And in fact, it frustrates me. And I don't know if it frustrates the people who maybe, I don't know, invent these exercises or whatever. But this, because obviously biomechanics became like a big thing. And I'll see someone post like their back transformation and it's been like, I don't know, a month. And they're like, oh, since I implemented this one movement, my lats grew so much. Just look in this. And I'm like, dude, it's been a month. How much do you expect to grow as an advanced bodybuilder in a month? Like, it's not like you haven't been stimulating that muscle at all. And now I am like thinking, I'm discrediting this exercise because now someone's just saying something so ridiculous. I'm just like, oh, it doesn't make any sense.
I try to see it from 2 different perspectives. Either, especially in your example now, that person is deceiving, intentionally deceiving, or they don't actually know anything about this, which also doesn't really make things better because they speak with authority, you know. One isn't as bad as the other, in my opinion, though. Because if you're a professional and you don't know what it is that you're talking about, then sorry, you're not a professional and you probably shouldn't really help people to the way that you claim to help people. If you are intentionally deceiving, we could make the argument that this is a form of marketing. And I don't think that morally or ethically there's anything wrong with marketing. This is something that people have always done. They've always tried to come up with, for example, also a selling point, what they stand for. Right? And if then, I don't know, single arm cable rows is the one thing that you stand for, then of course you want to really be known for this and promote yourself with it if that's your unique selling point. And that is something that all the products in the world that are actually successful do. They have a specific product that does one thing and is probably targeted to one audience or several audiences, but it has always a unique selling point, right? And it's then being marketed. And we are all bombarded and exposed to that daily, but we don't even notice that anymore. There are so many things on a daily basis that gives us some kind of promises that we have that we are getting more white teeth if we're using that toothpaste. If we're, I don't know, whatever, we are driving this car, we are a happier individual, have a happier family. And we all know that these are lies, right? But we are still not questioning it, or we are not even angry against it. So I would be a hypocrite if I were to then blame the personal trainer or coach who sells his coaching based on one methodology, or at least emphasizes this one, and if I don't then blame other products and brands to the same extent and hold them accountable to the same extent as well. And I think that there's nothing necessarily wrong with then kind of standing for one methodology. I think, yeah. What do you think about this?
It's funny. It reminds me of a chat I had with Charlotte where we're talking about like these, she follows some people who do like makeup and like influencers who get product and they try and sell it. And I'm like, this woman's going like, oh, I had this new product and I use it for my skin. It transformed my skin. It's so much better. It's only a week. And I'm like, she's full of complete fucking shit. Who believes this garbage? Like, you took this one product, transformed your skin. She's probably already taken tons of different products. And it's like this one that's basically the same. Like, she's just talking out of her ass. And anyone who knows anything knows that. But then so many people get deceived. So I know what you mean. And I hate that stuff so much. Yeah. We see through it. And I hope a lot of people do. But I mean, the people listening to this, I think, would see through some of the garbage that comes out of the fitness industry. But still, sometimes it's tricky to kind of see that. And there was another point I was going to make surrounding time, actually, to bring it back to your point. And this is why, actually, when I revisit kind of Eric Helms and his like muscle and strength pyramid, underneath it all was adherence. And in the past, I used to kind of scoff a little bit at adherence, be like, of course you're going to adhere. But as a coach, time doing basically things that work, which if you're a decent coach, you might have different methodologies, but as long as it's within some form of specificity and meets the principles, you're going to see growth. Then as a coach, adherence and getting your client to adhere is like the thing that is so important. And I think this is why, like when we say, oh, the clients that get the best results are the ones that stick around the longest, is because time is ultimately the differentiating factor with it all. So it's really hard to sell your coaching on like, okay, I'm going to be a good coach because I'm going to make sure you adhere because ultimately doing the things is the most important thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it is unfortunate and it's hard and there is no workaround as well, right? You can't accelerate the process. You can, of course, there are certain ways to have a better cells or bigger cell swelling and make it appear as if you look bigger. This is also the fundamental principles on something like a keto diet, where then people are losing a shit ton of weight in just a couple of days and people get the impression that a lot has happened. And yes, theoretically and factually speaking, a lot has happened, but not what it is that they were hoping for. And that is just a pure amount of fat loss that has now been kind of lost. No, it's mostly then tissue, so lean tissues such as water, glycogen, all that kind of stuff, you know. And it is a very, very tough thing to sell, of course. Like, you just have to invest more time. Yeah. Who wants to hear this? Especially in a day and age where people are just like wanting to see the results now. And it's just getting faster and faster and faster with everything in life.
And this is why, again, and we know this because we're coaches and maybe other people don't see it. But when I see other coaches sharing their clients like dramatic results within weeks, and it's like gaining maybe. And I'm like, God, like how much you dramatically gaining in weeks? Because ultimately at the start with a client, like it's mostly habits and how they're performing exercises. Those are the things you can change on the short term. You can't change their physique in a large way unless they're going through fat loss in the short term. That's
why when I share gaining results, it's only at the same body weight and with a longer time gap in between. So whenever you're going over to my Instagram and check those transformation pictures, you will never see he has gained 10 kilograms now in comparison to, I don't know, 6 months ago. And look how freaking big he is now. Yeah, no shit. Of course, he's eating more. He's weighing 10 kilograms more. Perhaps he has a favorable body fat distribution, which then makes him look much, much better. But what I really find then more impressive is if you then have a time gap of like a year, for example, you went through a cutting and a gaining phase. He's now at the same body weight, same circumstances, so basically at the same caloric intake maybe. And he visually looks so much leaner, but also bigger at the same time, at the same body weight. This is a true representation of like, has something changed? Not whether I went from a cutting phase, being super depleted, into now very well fed and feeling good and strong in the gym.
Yeah, it's a tricky one because I bet if you do more mini cut transformation photos, they get more attention. I don't know if they probably drive more clients, but the one you just spoke about won't draw as much attention, but it will drive, I would say if it does drive clients, it'll drive the ones that you really want because they're the ones who are like, I want that. And so I'm willing to stick around for a year. And if they're willing to give that amount of time, there's just no way they're not going to see the results so long as they get like 60 to 80% adherence to things. But it's a lot of people aren't willing to invest that much time into it all, which is why I guess steroids are so appealing to a lot of people.
100%. And sorry, can you hear that in the background?
I can't.
Okay, cool. No, I just want to make sure that you can't hear it because we have a painter doing paint job here at home.
Oh, nice.
And he's right now doing something, I don't know, drilling or so. Don't know. With that then being said, I think, going back to then also the steroid thing, I've already voiced my opinion about it, that some people abuse this even when presenting some before and after pictures. They are working with an audience that is naturals and people who are on steroids. If they are not really then saying or openly communicating it, I think it's also a little bit misleading, which is unfortunate, but it's something where I can't even, I don't want to say blame them, but I don't want to talk badly about them because I think they are also perhaps doing it from a marketing perspective, right? Now you can hear it, right? Yeah. Sorry for this. I'm right now considering going downstairs and saying that I'm doing a recording. Don't know.
We're almost done.
And yeah, going back to then also the picture that I've posted and stuff and what I've, other than that, changed, right? So first off, it is super important that time was the biggest component of then the transformation. Secondarily, I honestly assessed and asked myself of what it is that I'm doing is giving me the results that I want and having the effects that I want as well. Because there was a time where both you and I, we did so much more volume and was very easy to, and this is also falling back to what we said about kind of the people who were so kind of convinced about one thing and who now stand for that one thing that you can't even pull back anymore. And we even said, and we're quite convinced about the volume thing as well. And I took a complete 180, so to speak. I said in the past and thought that volume is probably much, much more important than it turns out what I've realized that it really is. I think that in itself, it's probably just the metabolic stress that you're able to induce. And of course, by that, probably more so the intensity that is, I think, more important. And in the past, I wasn't as convinced about this, but as more and more time passes and the more and more evidence is being presented to me via clients, via myself as well, I'm way more convinced that the intensity needs to be ticked off. Right? And if you then still have the capacity of then modifying and altering your volume requirements, then go ahead, do this, find the right volume for you for a given movement in a given situation, but this can always fluctuate. But if you're not bringing really the intensity, I think that it's a lost task. Then you can do all the volume in the world and nothing really will be fruitful.
Yeah, I think it was something where I got them over prioritize volume, I think was the thing that I ended up doing, where that meant deprioritizing relative intensity.
You have to, right?
Yeah, exactly. Too far, basically.
Yeah. You can't just like increase volume all the time while also maintaining a very, very high amount of intensity. It's simply impossible. Right? And
I
then-
don't know how I survived some of those. Well, I do know how I survived. That's the thing. Because I can say I don't know how I survived them if I was approaching those sets like I am now. But I know how I have survived them previously because I convinced myself that I was working sufficiently hard, but I never truly was working because actually, to go from needing 2 sets to then needing 5 on like a leg press or a hack squat, something big, a bench press. I mean, are you adapting that fast or are you sandbagging initially in that first week that's allowing you to then add too much?
Yeah. This is something that I've realized and then changed my focus a little bit more so of then bringing down the volume that I've been doing. By that also bringing up, of course, the intensity. And alongside that, though, I think it's super important to not just bring up the intensity because that doesn't do you any good as well of just like pushing balls to the wall. Yeah, it's just going the other way and then you're just swinging around the weights while not receiving any kind of benefits of increasing the intensity. In the same instance and breath, it was just revisiting my technique and my execution on all lifts. And those who were very good, I've tried to take this approach into other lifts as well. And it's also something that I've noticed with several of my athletes. There's often even 1 or 2 exercises that they have very much nailed down, where the control is pretty much there. Velocity, let's just bring up an example. Like they are having a dumbbell bench press. They are lowering it very slowly and under control, coming all the way down, still in a tight position, pausing for a slight second, coming up again. Sweet. Going over to hack squats, dropping down like a bomb and coming up again, right? Where it's like, no, wait a second. Take a look at your dumbbell bench press. And what it is that you do here with your arms is what I want you to do with your legs as well on this movement. Right? And this is something that I did as well. So those 3 components were kind of the biggest reasons for then the progress that was taking place over the past couple of years. And time has, though, the biggest chunk of it all.
And you've been leaner, so your partitioning ratio was better.
That's as well. That as well. And then also I was doing some kind of biomechanically more beneficial movements. And in regards then to what else was there? Nutrient timing. So I had most of my carbohydrates around workouts, all the kind of stuff. The good things, of course.
Yes, of course.
The things that make the difference of the last 5% have made actually 95% of a difference.
I was just going to say, I don't know if we spoke about it on here, but you were sick a little bit, weren't you? And your weight came right down. Are you back up yet? Did you regain it all?
I'm back up again at 79 kilograms, so right before I actually came down. And that was, I dipped into the 77s once again after a couple of days of being very, very sick. And it took a couple of days to regain it. It's crazy how much you're actually able to lose in a short period of time when you really don't eat anything.
Yeah, you just lose all that. I guess that's why... what is it? If people are trying to make weight and they haven't got that much to lose, they just go for like low fiber, like liquid foods basically for a day. And obviously don't try and undereat like you did because that would make them feel like shit the next day. But yeah, you can lose so much just like gut content through that. It's madness.
No, absolutely.
Cool.
And that was basically it. I mean, of course, we could go into depth about the smaller things that I did change, but I think it's less important because that's not really what fundamentally made the difference. Of course, it added things probably, but I think once again, the most valuable takeaway is just the time and deliberate practice. It's the same with every other skill that you're doing, right? If you want to get better, it's not about having the perfect way of learning things, or I don't know, you don't need to watch any kind of tutorials on how to play the guitar perfectly. If you learn it your way, of course, there may be some mistakes that you're making and there may be some movement patterns that are not as efficient. And it will be harder to get rid of those bad habits that you have ingrained, like later on. But at the same time, you're still probably making good progress overall. And I think it's the same when it comes to training. On your way, on your journey, you're probably making a lot of mistakes. And can things be optimized? Sure. But is that really holding back your progress? Hardly ever. Hardly ever. It's not that this one single exercise or that one single nutritional thing is holding you back. And it's something that I always thought in the past, hence why we also, same as you, Steve, we were so anal sometimes and so dogmatic about those small minor details. And I think that this is also where this is coming from with, if it gives me that 1% more, I don't want to leave it on the table. Yeah, but it probably won't, right? You're just missing really the forest for the trees here, and you're trying to compensate rather than taking care of the actual important things. And I think that if you do this, take care of those and do it over a long enough time, you don't really need to think about those kind of small minor details.
Yeah, I think if it's something that at all takes away from your ability to adhere long term, don't do it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not worth the investment at all. And you look at the best natural bodybuilders are the ones who have been doing this damn thing the longest, because time is the differentiating factor.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
I think that's such a powerful message. I think you could actually make that into an Instagram post. I think people would enjoy that as well, like a nice like three-point post. But hopefully people have taken value from that. And I always feel bad because I'm like, I don't think we should feel bad because we're being very honest and like we're kind of speaking facts really. But I feel bad because I think people might hear that and feel disheartened, but it shouldn't be disheartening. It should actually give you a lot of clarity in what's important and enjoying the process.
And I think it should also then help you in deciphering what is then just more like a sales pitch. Yeah. And so that you can't be sucked into that kind of idea or that illusion or so. Now, that being said, though, I kept one secret that you only will learn when you sign up for the coaching, though. So guys, as always, if you're interested in the Revive Stronger coaching and want to find out all about the secrets to making massive gains in a very short period of time,
fast track progress.
Well, exactly. Of course, we don't really want to reveal everything here. It was just the entirety. What I was saying was just to tease you up to this point, right? And then I want you to sign up for the coaching as well, right? So head over to revivestronger.com/online-coaching, sign up, and let's have a call. And then I can already give you a little bit more insight. I still won't share all of my secrets. Same goes for Steve's secrets as well, of course. And yeah, then we will, of course, get the ball rolling, I guess.
Guys, you better sign up to coaching. Some dramatic, short time, big improvements in your physique are going to come. It's
like the Coca-Cola secret. It's somewhere hidden in some kind of, bank account or so. It's kind of written on a small piece of paper. Once you so there's this one guy who's then promising you, I have the secret formula and I will take you now with me to the bank account. Let's get there. And you believe him, right? You're going to the bank account, you open up that deposit, take a look at that one piece of paper, you fold it up, and what's on the paper? You damn idiot. That's it. That's the message.
But it won't be a message, it will be a syringe.
Yeah. Cool. Guys, thank you very much
for tuning in.
Cheers.
Losing weight fast while maintaining muscle mass. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? It isn't though. It's reality and we know how to do it. And we will help you achieve this. The Minicut Movement is an 8-week fat loss program to make you lose a huge chunk of fat while maintaining muscle mass at the same time. We will support you from the beginning to the end so that you see the results you would like to and come out of it much stronger. You'll receive a fully automated spreadsheet that is based on your nutritional needs. You can choose between 6 different male and female training templates. Over 30 videos will guide you through each and every single step of the Minicut so that you're getting the most out of your journey and that you always know what to do. But the best thing is that you can start whenever you want. The Minicut Movement is open 24/7. So if you want to learn more or you're ready to sign up, hit the link in the description below. So let's revive stronger together.